Senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate consider the following nomination. Calendar item 643, Laura S.H. Holgate, to be representative of the United States of America to the International Atomic Energy Agency with the rank of ambassador, and that the nomination be confirmed, the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate, that no further motions be in order to the nomination, that any related statements be printed in the record, that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Is there objection? Senator from Florida.
Reserving the right to object. The Biden administration has failed to properly oversee the Pan American Health Organization, or PAHO. President Biden and Secretary Blinken know that PAHO has cooperated with the communist regime in Cuba to traffic doctors overseas. And they know there are Cuban doctors who are trying to sue PAHO and hold their traffickers accountable. Here are the facts. In July 2013, the Cuban Ministry of Health signed an agreement with the Brazilian Ministry of Health to formalize an arrangement for Cuban doctors to provide medical services in Brazil. That agreement required the administration and former Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff to transmit a monthly payment through PAHO to the Cuban Ministry of Health for the medical services provided by each Cuban doctor serving in Brazil. It also prevented Cuban doctors from seeking employment in Brazil outside of the formal structure of the arrangement. More than 20,000 Cuban medical professionals serving in Brazil under the Mais Medicos program had their wages stolen by the Cuban government and received only a small fraction of what they earned. And all that was with the support of PAHO. Their family members were prohibited from accompanying them, and many had their passports confiscated. Cuban doctors were the only medical professionals participating in the program who had their salaries directly garnished by their government. Meanwhile, doctors from other countries serving in Brazil received the full wages for their medical services. Other Cuban doctors have suffered similar abuses in Angola, Guatemala, Mexico, Qatar, and Venezuela. For example, in 2019, a group of Cuban doctors reported they had been directed and often coerced to use their medical services to influence votes in favor of the Maduro regime, including by denying medical treatment to opposition supporters and by giving precise voting instructions to elderly patients. This gross program is a huge moneymaker for the communist thugs ruling Cuba. In 2018 alone, they pocketed more than $6.3 billion from exporting Cuban professionals to work overseas. This is clearly human trafficking. And medical missions by Cuban doctors represent a majority of those profits. Since I've been in the Senate since 2019, I've been fighting for these Cuban doctors and against human trafficking. But absolutely nothing has been done to hold PAHO accountable. PAHO's hiding behind legal immunity. President Biden has the power to lift their immunity, and I've requested his administration do so multiple times, but they've shamefully declined. It's wrong. Victims of human trafficking deserve to see their alleged abusers in court, and PAHO should never be able to hide behind claims of immunity to avoid accountability for their role in facilitating those abuses. I've informed Secretary Blinken that until substantial steps toward fulfilling this request are made, I will be blocking all relevant State Department nominees. Americans deserve qualified and competent people in positions of power who put American interests first. If this administration wants to appease dictators like they have with the Castro and Diaz-Canel regimes and go to Venezuela and try to buy oil, I'm going to hold them accountable. Therefore, Madam President, I object.
The objection is heard.
Madam President.
Senator from Massachusetts.
Madam President, I appreciate the concerns that my friend from Florida has raised. However, I am just struggling to see how the safety and security of Ukraine's 15 nuclear reactors in the midst of World War II's largest reoccurrence of warfare in the European continent has any relationship to the issue which he raised. Russia is blocking International Atomic Energy Agency access into Ukraine. The proper response by the Senate, by the senator from Florida, is not to block our ambassador to the International Atomic Energy Agency at a time when Putin, at a time when Lavrov are talking about nuclear weapons. We need a representative to the International Atomic Energy Agency. That is what the senator from Florida is blocking right now on the floor. Just did it. All across our country, Americans are right now wondering, is a nuclear war once again possible? What if the Russians launch a tactical nuclear weapon into Ukraine against a non-Article 5 country? What is our response? They're wondering, does the IAEA have access to the 15 Ukrainian nuclear power plants that the Russians, with military force, are taking over? What is the protections that are going to be put in place in order to ensure that we, in fact, have done everything that we can do to avoid a nuclear accident, either a nuclear weapon or a nuclear power plant accident? That's where we are right now. And what I hear from the senator from Florida is a disquisition on a subject completely unrelated to those issues, as Americans are all tuned in on a daily basis in a way that they have not since 1962, to the very real potential that there could be a nuclear exchange, nuclear weapons exchange between Russia and the West. So, from my perspective, this is an historic moment that we have to come together on a bipartisan, in a bipartisan way to provide a response to Russia, a response to their allies, that we're deadly serious. And instead, what the senator from Florida has done is to arrive to object to the confirmation of Laura Holgate so that she can be there, and she's fully qualified. She's an all-star in her knowledge of all of these issues, but she won't be on duty. She won't be there with our allies, with the technical experts on all nuclear issues because of this objection, which we just heard. And from my perspective, we're at a pretty big turning point here. We need to be talking to everyone. We're either going to know each other or we're going to exterminate each other. That's the point in time at which we are at. We're either going to talk to each other or we could potentially slip into an accidental nuclear catastrophe that historians and future generations of young people will look back and say, how did that happen? Well, one of the reasons why it can happen is we can't even get an American to be confirmed by the Senate at this time of great crisis because of an objection from the Republican Party. I mean, partisanship should stop at the water's edge. But when you're talking about nuclear weapons, there shouldn't even be a discussion about it. We should just let this highly qualified woman to get on the job, to use her expertise in defense of our country, but in defense of everyone on the planet. Because this could quickly trigger accidents that escalate, and then the unimaginable could happen. So that's where we are right now. We need an ambassador to draw attention to the danger of Russian forces, especially holding Ukraine's nuclear operations at gunpoint. We need an ambassador to demand that Russia accept the IAEA's offer to establish a presence in Ukraine to ensure the continued safe operation of Ukraine's nuclear facilities. Russia knows from the aftermath of the Chernobyl nuclear accident, the worst in history, that deadly radioactive fallout does not respect borders. And we need an ambassador at the IAEA to perform a wide array of duties outside of the Ukraine crisis, from keeping non-nuclear weapon countries non-nuclear and making sure that this doesn't trigger attempts by other countries to gain access to nuclear materials and then nuclear weapons. And we have to make sure that ultimately that we confirm Laura Holgate. First, she served the same role in the Obama administration. She hits the ground running. She knows these issues. Second, she's a protege of Senator Sam Nunn and Senator Richard Lugar. And like that legendary bipartisan duo, she has devoted her career to dismantling weapons of mass destruction and materials that could be used by terrorists as dirty bombs. So how is it that we still don't have an ambassador seated at the International Atomic Energy Agency's meetings on Ukraine? Given this body unanimously confirmed Ambassador Holgate in December to be our representative to the other UN organizations based in Vienna? That's a good question, and it has no good answer, and we did not hear that answer on the floor of the United States Senate just 5 minutes ago when the senator from Florida objected. We didn't hear a word about their objections. But I'll tell you what, they're creating very risky conditions for all Americans when they deny our country a seat at the table at the International Atomic Energy Agency at this time in history. I was the same age as the pages on the floor today when the Cuban Missile Crisis cast a shadow over our nation. I remember what that was like. We're slipping day by day into a situation where we could be confronted with similar conditions. And the least that we should be able to say is we tried. We really tried to avoid that nuclear catastrophe. And the minimum that we should do is have an ambassador who's at the table, who's talking to all of our allies and the rest of the world about these issues right now. Ukraine and the whole of Europe averted disaster when a Russian munition fell just short of Ukraine's nuclear reactors just a couple of weeks ago. We may not be so lucky the next time if Russian forces move on the country's other facilities with the same reckless abandon. What possible benefit is derived from keeping our ambassadorial post at the IAEA unfilled at a time like this? We make nuclear safety and nuclear security a partisan issue at our own peril, at the peril of every family in our country, as well as Europe. It is just absolutely irresponsible for unrelated reasons to deny our country that kind of protection right now. So we're going to keep coming back on this. And the reason we are is that we can see a continued escalation. We can see, in Putin's own words, reckless intent. And it's not for us to judge whether he's sincere or not in terms of his consideration of the use of nuclear weapons or his lack of full consideration of what the consequences are of having armed attacks on nuclear power plant facilities all over the Ukraine. We can't get inside of his brain, but the least we can do is have someone go to the table, an American, someone who's dedicated her life, Ambassador Holgate, to this work. That's what happened here on the floor right now. It was a partisan politicization of nuclear proliferation, of nuclear safety, at a time where we're seeing a peril that we have not seen in 50 years in the United States or the planet. And all I can tell you is history will not come back and well receive the partisan objection, the completely unrelated reasons for not allowing us to have that kind of representation at the nuclear table at this particular point in time. So I thank you, Madam President, and I intend to return on this subject as many times as it takes so that we can have someone who is there protecting every family in our country. So with that, I yield back, and I question the presence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.